I'll start by saying that I don't really like Clarence, and this episode is one of the reasons why. This is the first episode of the entire series, and thank God it wasn't the first episode that I watched when I was younger, because if it had been, I would have simply given up on the entire series. The episode is called Fun Dungeon Face-Off, and it shows how Clarence has no consideration for his friend and simply ignores his wishes. Much of Clarence's personality is revealed, and I wanted to discuss it with you. The episode begins with the main characters waiting in line at a restaurant. Clarence seems very eager to eat the food, and Jeff not so much. He says he's only interested in the establishment's French fries. When it's time to place orders, Clarence asks for a salad, and Sumo struggles to place his order, so Clarence basically has to translate everything he says.
So...
Can't you hear him? He said he wants the chicken nuggets.
Finally, Jeff orders a scout meal but asks them to remove the burger because, as mentioned earlier, he only wants the fries. The employee says that wouldn't be possible, and Jeff doesn't seem to accept that well. He tries to make the same order but in a different way. Here we can already see that Jeff, for some reason, is obsessed with the idea of getting a scout meal but doesn't accept the idea of the burger coming with it. He could simply order the fries and the toy separately, but he wanted it to come in the scout meal box. When Clarence's mom states the obvious, which would be to give the burger to someone else, Jeff simply says it's a matter of principles. Here we can see that he's a difficult person to deal with. He is very perfectionistic and wants things to go his way. This can end up irritating the people around him and giving off an air of arrogance. No one wants to be around someone with a closed mind, let alone someone who always tries to be right. But in this episode, Jeff isn't even the annoying character. We'll get there soon. After Clarence's mom resolves everything, meaning Jeff had to take the burger, we have one of the scenes that give me more reasons not to like this show. It's when Clarence and Sumo share their food. If you've already watched the show, it might not seem like a big deal, but when you remember that this is the first episode of the series, the episode that would be giving our first impressions of each character, it's hard not to think about giving up on this show. Even I was a pretty dumb and slow child, that can't be denied, but even I found it unnecessary. I'm the type of person who likes things very clean, so for me, this only served to hate the characters even more, in this case, Clarence, because I love Sumo. Continuing, Clarence tries to take Jeff's fries, and he yells so loud that the whole restaurant starts looking at them. Clarence feels a bit down, but Jeff explains that he just doesn't like people touching his food. Not much later, nature calls, and he needs to go to the bathroom, but before that, he wants Clarence to promise not to touch his fries while he's away.
Promise me.
All right, I won't touch your fries.
Really?
Yep.
Jeff trusts him, but Clarence shows no effort to respect his friend's wish. Clarence thinks about using the fries to convince Jeff to play with them in the fun dungeon. Clarence had invited him a few times before, but Jeff had declined every time. This shows an absurd lack of respect on Clarence's part, who simply tries to ignore his friend's wishes in an attempt to please his own. Playing is something fun, and it's strange that a child doesn't like to do it. Clarence is right to try to convince Jeff to go, but from the moment Jeff declined the invitations, he should have respected his friend's wishes and moved on. It's wrong to force someone to do something they don't want just because you think it would be fun. Of course, Clarence did this innocently, but even so, he did it. You might even look at this and think that Clarence is an idiot, and he really was one, but how different are you? If you and your friend had to come to an agreement on how to solve a math problem, would you set aside your preference and accept theirs, even thinking yours is better? Or would you continue to push the idea that yours is the best? Of course, these are different cases, but the idea is the same. Let's suppose that a boxer and a karate fighter are discussing which martial art is better. The boxer says, boxing is better, and the other says, no, karate is better. The other says, no, boxing is better. They go back and forth until they decide to fight to convince the other that their fighting style is better. One of them is almost at the brink of death. The person from boxing accepts that karate is better. The question is, was it worth it? Let's look at this from a smarter perspective. The first guy says, boxing is better than karate. The other, even if they disagree, says, sure. And life goes on. Continuing. When Jeff comes out of the bathroom and realizes his fries weren't there, he becomes extremely furious, rightly so, and starts going after Clarence. While Jeff goes after Clarence, it's important to note that one of those balls got stuck to Jeff's face. This is very interesting because the main reason Jeff didn't want to play with those things is that he believed the balls were sticky from many kids having vomited on them. But Clarence doesn't believe it, and apparently, Jeff was right. After a lot of chasing and Jeff reaching the limit of his patience,
I'm gonna kill you, Clarence!
Clarence finally reveals that the fries were in his pocket the whole time. He tries to give them back to Jeff, but they were simply inedible. At this point in the episode, the narrative tries to make it seem like Clarence is the good guy in the situation and Jeff is the bad guy. While, in fact, it's not quite like that. It's okay that Clarence did that trying to help, but even so, it irritated me a lot. This wouldn't have happened if Clarence had simply respected his friend's wishes and left the fries in their place. He doesn't understand that other people have their reasons for being the way they are. For Clarence, those are just fries, but for Jeff, it was something he would never understand. After explaining this, the two end up reconciling, and by the end of the episode, they both acknowledge that they were wrong to some extent. Clarence was wrong for stealing his friend's fries, and Jeff was wrong for reacting that way. They both go home, but we see that Clarence, again, unintentionally stole the shoes of a girl who was in that establishment. And for me, that was what was missing to give a terrible first impression of Clarence. And that was the end of the episode. What did we learn from it? Respect others' wishes, don't eat like pigs, be hygienic, and please like and subscribe. Hugs and until next time.